Good morning everyone and welcome to week 5 of our virtual classrooms things or lessons. I hope you're well and bearing up. Weather's been quite good, so perhaps you've been outdoors in the garden or on your limited walks doing some sketching or whatever. Right, this week I want to try doing something. I want to not necessarily get away from colour, but I want to try a bit of perspective and looking at perspective. It's one of those things where if you get it right, the picture can look, or put it this way, if you get it right, you don't notice it, and the picture looks normal. But if you get it wrong, it can really stand out. And I think there are some basic rules which I kind of hope we can go through over this session. But the main thing is that I want to try and do this in a way where it's not boring, because probably with perspective it becomes a sort of mathematical thing which I don't want to really introduce into our lessons, because I think it'll just kind of, it won't, you know, we're here to sort of paint and do things which are artistic and not just too scientific. But so I want to try and look at perspective, but look at it from a painter's point of view and not worry too much about the absolute sort of mathematics of it. Okay, so this is Edward Seago, who you know I've talked about a lot, a bit of a hero of mine. And the point is, when perspective is painted or drawn correctly, it's just wonderful. And as I said, you don't actually notice it, but when it's wrong, it can stick out a bit. So that's an example of a painting. I mean, there's loads of those. We'll come back to his because I want to use his in today's lessons. This is just a photograph of a beach, and I think one thing with perspective is sometimes people make it difficult for themselves by tackling subjects which are really hard. You know, there's all sorts of trees and different eye levels and hundreds of different sort of viewpoints and different perspectives going on, which just, you know, is so much and it's really hard to work with. So I think the best thing to do for us and for me is to start with the basics and look at simple things like beaches where there's some very straightforward planes of view. In most of the photos I'm going to use in today's lessons, I do apologise, but there's lots of family shots in there, but they're mainly taken by my wife, so they tend to have people in them, whereas I tend to take pictures without people because I'm a bit like that. Anyway, this is a basic beach, and you can see the good thing about beaches is they have very clear sort of horizons and pretty straightforward shapes that give the perspective of the beach away. So if we trace that, you can kind of see that the waves in this big V point to the vanishing point, which is on the horizon, okay, as such. Now, just as same with this picture is, I'm just grabbing something to point with, hope I didn't get anywhere there. You have an eye level as well, which is below the horizon. And that's another thing we kind of get wrong quite often, where we forget to, you know, our eye level is relative to the horizon. And if our eye level is relative to the horizon, everybody generally on the same level as us should have the same eye levels, bearing in mind their age, etc. and height. A common thing on a beach is eye levels are just below the horizon. Now the reason they are just below the horizon is because the beach is gently angled. Okay, that might be Clyde Beach. Below, is that better? Below is like Holcombe Beach, where it's very flat and the eye level is quite even with the horizon. So if you're standing on Clyde Beach, at the top, you look out to sea and you look level, and there's the equivalent of you out at sea. You're this distance above the ground, whereas everybody else below you is perspectively dropping down or below your eye level. So that's where eye level and perspective planes and vanishing points can get a bit confusing. So again, we're going to do the easy ones and go for fairly flat beaches where the eye level is just below or on the horizon. Okay, now what I'm going to do is go outside now and show you a little experiment you can do with a book to help you understand eye levels and horizons. Okay? Right, so what I'm going to do is just show you a little experiment to work out your eye level relative to the perspective of view you can see. Don't worry too much about this. It will just, don't get, oh, I don't really understand. It'll come clear when you start doing other scenes. Basically, if we look at the scene and we hold up either your hand flat or something like this, which exaggerates it, dead line, then everything on that line is the same as my eye line. That is the eye line for everything we're seeing in this view. Now if you can see below it, that means everything is above the eye line, and if you can see the top of that mat, everything is below the eye line. So if we take the mat out, and we now hold my hand there, which is, you know, flat with my eye line, and you could do the same thing with yours, you can see that the path in the distance, everybody, that is the same height as my eye line. So if there are people on that path now and I was painting that, they would be the same height as me. Now that's kind of complicated, but I think the idea of you can see you're looking up or looking down on things, I think is really important, because sometimes when we do these perspectives like the river banks and everything else, we sort of end up, we sort of position ourselves way too high and we're looking down at things. I think what we're trying to do is flatten the perspective plane in our experiments now, and we're going to try and show how this, if we flatten this eye level and this eye line, it makes drawing and painting a lot easier. Okay, right. I hope that made some sort of sense. I'm sorry today it's a bit technical. So what I'm going to do is rather just go full on technical, I'm going to post pictures like I did last week at regular intervals, time coded, and what I'd like you to do is to copy them as mini landscapes or whatever scale you want, to be honest. And I really want you to try and emphasize these perspectives. So if this was a view you were copying, you would draw in that sort of triangle and then draw in these people and really try and look for the perspective or the perspective in the view. I hope it'll kind of fall into place, and I'll start easy and we'll build up, but we won't go, we'll kind of keep the plane quite low and quite flat, so everything's kind of even and basically, straightforward. And then after we've done a succession of those, then it'd be nice perhaps to do a painting. So I'm going to post a picture which I think has really good perspective in it, and then basically I'd like you to paint that and to experiment again with your colour mixing a bit to sort of try and emphasise the colours. So it might be basically we're going to copy someone else's painting. But I will be on hand for WhatsApp. You can email, you can ring if you want, and I'll talk through any of these points and we'll go through them again. But it's really just to try and get away from the maths of perspective and try and understand the kind of how it works successfully in a painting. Okay, again, I hope that made sense. I will start posting pictures in about half an hour or so, and as I say, they'll be time coded. I will give people time to settle in to sort of practice this one, and I'll be on hand to take any answers as they message me on WhatsApp, ring, or send an email, and I'll try and do my best. Please be patient, because if one or two people obviously messaging at the same time, there's a bit of a lag, but I'll try and get on top of it. Anyway, as I said before, I hope you're well, hope you enjoyed today's lesson, and just be safe and look after yourselves. See you soon. Bye.